Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now this is the AMD A69500. There are a couple of videos regarding this APU here on YouTube, but I can't find a single review or test from any well-known website out there. It's as if this thing doesn't exist. Is it really that bad? After all, for the £45 or $60 it costs, it's certainly one of the cheapest ways to get yourself on the newest AM4 socket. So let's get into it. The A69500 is a dual-core socket AM4 APU that comes packaged in a tiny box with a tiny heatsink, and it's the very processor that AMD were lending to users for free to update their motherboard BIOS to accommodate Ryzen CPUs, but unfortunately you couldn't keep them. A more energy efficient version called the 9500E is also available with a 35W TDP instead of 65, as well as featuring a few less GPU cores. So what can it do? Well, let's take a look. To test out the raw processing power of this APU, I ran Geekbench, which returned a multi-core score of 134, beating out an ancient Socket 775 Pentium E5400 by a few points. I also ran Geekbench 4, which, with the single and multi-core scores here, coming back as 24, 23 and 36, 34 respectively, mean it isn't going to be breaking any speed records. To get an idea of the GPU power, I ran Unigine Heaven benchmark and was surprised to see that this APU managed to complete the 26 scenes with an average of just over 30 FPS at 1080p with the low settings. I can also say that for general usage I had no problem browsing the web, watching 1080p videos and doing just general internet stuff, which points to this thing's true calling. But before we jump to conclusions, let's pit it against some actual games to get an idea of real world performance from this cheap chip. Now I've paired mine with 8GB of 2400MHz memory, the maximum speed supported. Some games like Bioshock Infinite here were able to run at Full HD with reduced settings, which was surprising, but it's immediately clear that for a little more money, the Ryzen 3 2200G would give you a significant advantage, as seen by my previous review. That's not to say that this thing isn't worth buying if you want to get onto a new platform as cheaply as you can, with the intention to upgrade soon after. Or maybe you just want a cheap everyday machine and don't care about gaming. Though if you're watching a channel named Random Gaming in HD, I think you might care just a little bit. More demanding titles like Rise of the Tomb Raider will also run, but you'll have to turn the resolution way down, though I was left wondering as to how on earth it managed to play Fortnite with a playable frame rate. I started off with 720p and 100% 3D scaling, but that proved a little choppy, so dropping things down to 70% proved to be ideal, though a far cry from what an APU that costs just £30 or dollars more can do. Again, namely the 2200G. Although it's clear that it's the Ryzen APUs that meant cheaper options like this went overlooked from pretty much all reviewers, as a super cheap solution to get yourself onto a modern platform it isn't terrible, considering it means that you would be Ryzen ready should you ever want to upgrade a little further down the line. The 35W version of this APU would, just like this one, also be great for a low power home theatre setup, especially if you have no intention of playing games, though you could certainly get away with running some older and esports titles just fine. So guys, there we have it. I actually had no intention of purchasing this APU, but I got one of those Amazon recommended email things and I thought why not give it a go, and it turns out it wasn't that terrible. As always, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you did, please leave a like on it down below. Leave a dislike if you didn't. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next one.